Today I'm going to show you a little bit about the Search Institute's counterpart to the Developmental Relationships Framework, Developmental Assets. Developmental assets are 40 assets that a student has in order to succeed, set up for success. There are 40 positive supports and strengths. Half are external and focused on relationships and opportunities young people need in their families, schools, and communities. The other half are internal, and that's focused on social emotional strengths, values, and commitments that are nurtured within young people. We know relationships matter. We have invested in the developmental relationships framework as a foundational block in this district because without it, even the most high quality instructional practices are not as accessible or efficient in accelerating achievement and growth without intentional, strong relationships between educators and students. Instructional practices are not as successful when trying to implement with students who are blocked socially, emotionally, or behaviorally. We all have blocked students and we all struggle to support these students, but we also have a tool, the Developmental Relationships Framework. We can use the framework to strategically support the development of youth and target specific areas of need that will directly support a child's probability of success by using the Search Institute's counterpart, the developmental assets. Let's get to know the developmental assets a little bit better first. Not only does understanding which assets a student is lacking help us support a student academically, but the more assets a child has, the less likely a child will participate in at-risk behavior, and vice versa. The less assets a student has, the more likely a student will participate in at-risk behavior. If a student has social, emotional, or behavioral concerns, check his or their assets to determine how to best support. Click on the links in the slideshow in order to access the 40 developmental asset lists. They're organized by age. Take the time now to go through them. You may pause the video. In the slideshow, you have a link to the developmental assets checklist. The best way to become familiar with the assets is by looking at the child that you know better than any other through the developmental assets lens, and that is yourself as a child. When you do this, you will automatically begin thinking about how you yourself compensated for the assets that were missing, and/or you will automatically start thinking about the supports, experiences, resources, and relationships that you had to support your development towards success. They go hand in hand. You are all successful educators who make a living by impacting hundreds to few thousands of youth. You were fortunate enough to either grow up having most or all of the 40 assets, or you found the supports to help you compensate, and/or you overcompensated with your own internal assets. What you are going to do right now is take some time to think about yourself as a child from any age. You can choose to look at yourself at the age of the children you now educate, or you can choose to assess your child's self at any public school age and apply the checklist. The link is in the slideshow. Take some time and apply it now. By simply using the checklist as the lens to assess or flush out where the developmental needs are of a child with social, emotional, or behavioral concerns, you can then turn to the relationships framework to strategically choose interventions to strengthen the child's missing or weaker assets. We had enough team of teachers who knew pieces of this student so that we were able to get a bird's eye view and complete the checklist for him. You may have to ask questions of the student or family to get more information. A support staff member may have to give the student his or their own version of the checklist to get a better understanding of what assets the child has and is in need of. Please click the link in the slideshow to the model of the checklist application of a middle school student. Creating an intervention plan is not a simple process and takes a lot of outside of the box thinking and getting to know the student. But once you apply the checklist, Then you can sit down and use the relationships framework lens in order to create interventions. Because this particular student that you looked at the checklist for had an asset of being a guitarist and also great relationship with his English language arts teacher, because he had some difficulty with parents, and his father and mother were divorced, and the father lived with him, but they did not get along, and the mom lived out of state. We had to really work with the family to help create that dynamic and pull mom in order to be a part of her son's life. We also created a mentorship relationship with the music teacher, the counselor, assistant principal. We challenged the child's growth by providing tutoring support. We made sure to contact both parents at all times when we were communicating with them about progress that the child made, concerns, and also positive experience that the child was having. It really changed the dynamic of both mom and dad. The child also started meeting with the counselor weekly for check-ins. We provided supports. We had Google Meets, positive conversations with the family, including the student. The music teacher started working with the child and created an independent study, since he was failing music, but was this incredible guitarist, self-taught. The child then felt like he had some control, and a relationship really started blooming with him and the music teacher, and the music teacher started doing check-ins as well. We gave him opportunities to share his guitar knowledge and get some breaks throughout the day. He recorded himself with the tech ed teacher. When the tech ed teacher found out what an incredible guitarist he was, the tech ed teacher at the time was giving some opportunities for students to showcase their talent through video, and then it was shared every other week or every couple of weeks. Once the student actually recorded himself with the tech ed teacher for that spotlight video, students were coming up to him. They couldn't believe what a fantastic guitarist he was, and he started making lots of great relationships with other kids too. Little by little, we started seeing a difference in him. His eye contact, started making eye contact. His head was up off of the desk. All of his grades improved. And, we expanded his, possibility by connecting him to other kids who wanted to learn guitar. Adults in the building started asking him about, tips for guitar and how to learn the guitar as well. He really felt that he was valued and connected to so many in the building. He worked with the school counselor, he applied to Platt, and he really is a success story. He went to Platt, all his grades came up, he graduated, he was happy, lots of relationships with other kids beyond the ones that he would skateboard with and ride a bike with. He expanded his relationships with adults in the building, and even his relationship with his parents improved. When you click the link, you can see this in person. We added social emotional strategies to the SRBI intervention list. At the time, the state was not requiring it, but of course the state does require it now, thankfully. But we do have students who are truly having social emotional concerns versus academic or just behavioral. Please take a moment and use the links in the slideshow. You can choose a case study if you're working by yourself or with another person, choose together. There are 2 case studies. There's a 16-year-old male and an 8-year-old female. You could choose to read both. You could choose to read either one. You can apply the checklist, and that link, a blank one, is also in the slideshow. You could together then create an intervention plan as well. There's a blank intervention plan in the slides as well. That link is in there. There are 2 resources that you can use in order to get you started. Links are also included in the slideshow. That's the SRBI, all the interventions and strategies that include the social emotional. And then there's the developmental relationships framework that you can pull from. So we want to take some time right now in order to kind of apply this method to a case study. There's a Canva link for you as well. This is a poster that you can either use for yourself in your classroom, or you can actually send the electronic version out to staff or parents when you are communicating. One of the best things that we decided to do, which I would encourage, is creating a developmental relationships / assets student committee. When they have the transparency of these assets, they start looking at things very differently. And then they also start working towards supporting other students in the actual building and coming up with great projects to do with them. They would like for us to actually survey all of the students, and we are thinking about doing that. But really pulling kids in and creating transparency around this has really accelerated the use of the assets in our building, and looking at how we can really use the developmental relationships framework in a very strategic way. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.